Hey everybody, so this video is going to show you how to animate a nav mesh or a collision mesh. There are going to be some special caveats with that because remember that nav meshes or collision meshes have to have their transforms applied and they cannot be children. They have to be in the root node of the GLTF file. That does lead to some issues when animating. Now, there are some methods that you can use to get around these issues that are brought forth because of the way the physics systems work inside of nowhere. What I want to do for this video is I think it would be pretty cool to make this whole banana be rotating and have the whole nav mesh rotate with it. So what we are going to do here is go ahead and first of all, we're going to just animate our banana visually and make it have the animation that we'd like it to have. The first step of that will be dropping in our keyframes at frame 0. I think it should be probably 720 frames at like the minimum. We might have to bump that up, but we'll go to 720 and we'll see how it looks once we export. And I think we need to go back to 0. And we got to change this to XYZ Euler because we don't want to work in quaternion. It's confusing. We'll go to 720 and we will add 360 degrees to our Z rotation value, and we'll keyframe that. So now, over this is going to just be slowly rotating and within 3D space. Now, that's easy enough, and we're going to have to trigger that with the giant trigger entity that triggers our animations on world load, but we have something called banana action. Now, in order to get our nav mesh to do the same thing, you could just think, okay, let's turn on our collision meshes. Let's make sure we have banana selected. Let's go over here and make sure banana nav is selected. And if we were to try to rotate on the z-axis, oh, see, our center point is not in the center of the banana. So our rotation can't just be easily applied to the same thing. It's not going to work. And that can lead to a lot of issues, right? So it's not an easy one-to-one copy over keyframes. You also cannot make the nav mesh the child of the visible mesh and export it. So that leads to an issue because if you make it a child, you can animate the parent. That works great. On export, it'll be screwed up and the physics will not work right in our system. So there's a quick little trick to get around this, and this is how I like to animate my nav meshes. And I'm just going to temporarily parent my nav mesh to my visible mesh. In order to do that, I make sure I have my nav mesh selected, and I shift click on my visible mesh. I click Control P, parent to object, keep transform. So now you'll see our nav mesh and our visible mesh are moving together with this animation. Perfect. But you can also see the center point of our nav mesh is moving, which is what we actually want. Because at 0, the center point has to be 0, 0, 0, which it is. And as you move, that center point is going to be moving around. Exactly what we're looking for. The only problem now is we can't export it like this because the nav mesh is not in the root directory. It is a child of the banana. What we can do to alleviate this is we can go to the banana nav mesh. We can click on object, right? We can go to animation. We can click bake action. And in here, we have to make sure we have visual keying turned on, and we have to make sure we have clear parents turned on. And that will make sure that after this is baked, and as it's in the baking process, it's not baking it as a child, it's going to bake it in the root directory, which is exactly what we need. So our start frame is 0, our end frame is 720. And we don't want to do every single frame. Let's try doing we'll try every 30 frames and see how it looks. We might have to end up doing more if it's too gradual. Whoops. Let's go back and do that again. I didn't hit enter. Bake action, visual keying, clear parents, 30 frames. Enter. Now you can see our banana no longer has a child of banana nav. So our nav mesh is its own parent. It's in the root directory. and it's directly in sync with our banana. And we'll name this banana nav action. And we can then go ahead and add to our trigger prop. We can turn off our collision meshes for now then. And we can add to our trigger properties our banana actions. So on enter, we're going to add two more actions, right? We're going to add banana action and banana nav action. And we can loop those and make sure they're playing forward. One thing you can also do if you want to directly animate the nav meshes, you can make visible meshes children of nav meshes. This could also be a good way to save keyframes. So if you don't want to double up on keyframes and bloat your file size, if it's a complex animation, you could add the visual mesh as a child of the nav mesh. That does work. So let's go ahead and export our GLTF. And we're going to have to go back in here real quick and drag over our files. And then we'll do a quick little refresh and we'll see what we got going on here. And as you can see, we now have a rotating banana. Currently, the content frame is not moving with it, and I believe neither is the teleport destination, but it will be very shortly. As you can see, the nav mesh is also animating properly with the banana. So if we were to stand here, we'll be rotating around in space on this banana nav mesh. You probably want to slow it down a little bit, I'm thinking, but it's working as intended. So that's pretty cool. We can try this again and see how that works. But as you can see, we have a functioning. Animated teleporters are working, so that's good to know. It's just that the screen and content frames are not going to show up, but they will in live production when you're using our plugin. So we can click this teleport to banana at really any time, and we're still going to end up over here where we should. We're actually over here, I think. Yeah, that's where we are at. Nope, it's the other side. Yes, we end up where we should over here, no matter where we're at, which is pretty cool. Some other caveats. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it. Animating nav meshes are tricky sometimes, but if you follow the method I just showed you, it's pretty straightforward.